You know that feeling you sometimes get? That maybe the deeper answers, the really big ones about life, lie just beyond what everyday logic or even science can tell us.
Hmm.
Or maybe you sense that what we call reality is, I don't know, just a kind of simplified picture our minds create, a placeholder for something vaster.
It's definitely a feeling that resonates, and it often kicks off these incredible philosophical explorations, doesn't it?
It really does.
But today, we're not just, debating abstract ideas. We're actually doing a proper deep dive, really getting into a fascinating source. Path of Beauty, Chapter 7, Light and Self,
Mm.
by Oscar Enrique Munoz. And what's great is it offers this really direct, quite experiential way into these huge questions.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive, isn't it?
Yeah.
To unpack some truly profound concepts, things that really challenge our everyday thinking. We're going to look at the difference between reality and truth, get into the essence of light itself, see where our usual ways of thinking maybe fall short, and touch on the real nature of existence and consciousness as this text explores it.
Yeah, the goal is to pull out those nuggets of insight, the surprising bits of knowledge that might shift your perspective, without making you feel like homework.
Right. We want to journey beyond just definitions, more into like a direct experience, a deeper feel for these ideas. So let's just jump right in because the source, it starts with this fundamental question from Isla Tesura. What is the difference between reality and truth, if there is any? Simple question, huge implications.
It is, and what's striking is Sua's response. They don't immediately give a definition. Instead, they kind of push back, gently but firmly, against using that purely logical academic language for these really deep ontological concepts,
Hmm.
ideas about being itself.
They call it scholastic philosophy.
Exactly. And warn that it just leads to mechanical repetition of mental images, basically repeating concepts without real understanding, which can end in dogmatic skepticism.
Okay, so why is that approach so limiting here? What's wrong with just defining reality and truth clearly, like we try to do with other concepts?
Well, that's the core of Sear's point. Those definitions, those neat intellectual boxes, they seem helpful, right? But the text argues they create these purely theoretical ideas that ultimately don't resolve our deepest doubts. They don't solve the fundamental problems of existence.
So they leave the soul, as the text puts it, kind of stuck.
Precisely. Stuck spinning its wheels, never quite reaching a satisfying answer.
Hmm.
Sura uses this really evocative metaphor. The girl who plays in her small park, while the stars continue their magnificent and powerful dance beyond her reach and understanding.
Wow, that really paints a picture of how limited just thinking about things can be. Like, we're missing the whole cosmic dance by staying in our little mental playground.
It does. It suggests we might be missing out on the sheer scale of experience by sticking to our intellectual comfort zones.
So if the scholastic logical way isn't the path, what's the alternative Surah suggests? How do we approach something like reality or truth?
Sura proposes a completely different way. Walking the path of beauty, following the steps of the musical soul, the supramental, the Shakti that dances in love with the I am, and then embracing silence.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Supramental Shakti, I am.
Right. It immediately signals that this approach is deeply experiential, it's non-dual meaning, it goes beyond seeing things as separate, and it's integrated. Supramental isn't just super smart, it's a consciousness beyond our usual mental limits, more direct, intuitive.
And Shakti.
Shakti is that dynamic creative energy, the consciousness force of the universe in action. And the I am is our deepest essential self before all the labels and identities. So it's about connecting with these fundamental aspects.
So it's about connecting inward to these deeper realities within ourselves.
Exactly. And while word origins etymologies have their place, Sura says they ultimately leave us naked in the storm of life. There's just not enough on their own for navigating actual experience.
So it shifts from defining reality and truth to experiencing them. That's a huge shift, isn't it? It makes you notice all the times you're just living in a mental map instead of the actual territory, like planning your next meeting instead of feeling the chair you're sitting on.
It profoundly does. And Sura gets really direct about this, addressing that understandable desire we all have. Isla certainly has it to know what it is reality, but, without the really intense, maybe even terrifying experience that might involve.
Yeah.
They compare it to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, wanting to see Krishna's true form, but without going through the experience of terror, without having to run begging for mercy before the whirlwind of reality, without liminoid masks, the naked reality, pure and devastating as an explosion of supernova.
Whoa, okay. So seeking a concept of reality isn't seeking reality at all. It's like asking for the menu instead of the meal.
Precisely. You're seeking a mental image of it, not the thing itself.
So what is reality then, according to Sura, if it's not something we can pin down with concepts?
The answer given is deceptively simple, but incredibly deep. Reality is what is spontaneously offered to your vital experience in this moment. That is also the real.
Just this moment, right now.
Yes, it's not out there to be found through thinking. It's right here. In the breath, the sensations, the sounds, the immediate living flow of this moment. It grounds the whole thing in vital experience.
Which leads to that really counterintuitive point Sura makes. If you think you understand reality, then you are not understanding anything. That feels like a paradox.
It does, but it follows logically from the premise. Our usual way of understanding involves creating a conceptual construction, something our dualistic thinking can grasp. But any concept is, by definition, a simplification.
Like a map isn't the actual land.
Exactly. A map simplifies the territory.
Yes.
So a concept of reality is a simplification of reality. That is, it is not reality. Sura calls this mental game typical of the use of the soul, which needs these simplifications, these liminoid identities and limiters forces of consciousness that make the unlimited manageable.
So our concepts are like necessary filters, training wheels maybe, so we don't get completely overwhelmed by the supernova of direct reality.
That's a great way to put it. They're conscious training wheels, allowing us to engage with the immense complexity without being flattened. They let us function.
And this is where truth fits in, as one of these limiters.
Yes, truth is presented as one of the limiters of reality, the most transparent one. And crucially, it's best grasped from direct life experience when the masks are silent, when you no longer expect anything from the universe nor from any identity.
So it's not an intellectual fact, but something that emerges when the mental noise dies down.
Right. It's embedded in being, not just in thought.
And the source gets quite poetic here, doesn't it? Saying some poetry points toward the truth, but the I am in you, as long as it exists, is always being that truth.
Beautiful, isn't it? And then those lines, the sun and my eyes merge in the shape of a rose. Its perfume and my joy are of the same reality substance of petal and dawn. Truth is every thread of light that nourishes gaze with flowers.
It really paints truth as this vibrant, living quality. Something we are part of, not just something we observe or define, a direct, unified feeling.
Which flows perfectly into Isla's own deep connection to light. She asks, what is light? Sometimes I think I'm in love with light. And she talks about this deep nostalgia for the light, an infinite thirst for more light. It sounds like more than just, appreciating a sunny day.
Definitely feels deeper.
Absolutely. Sura explains it directly. It is your volitional soul that asks for its food. Your will of light is nostalgia of creation, of more life. So it connects light fundamentally to our will, our drive to create, to live more fully.
And to the I am.
Yes, Sura connects it directly to the I am, reminding us of the saying, often attributed to Christ, the I am is the light of the world. Light isn't just illumination. It's tied to the very core of our being, the source itself, a hunger for that source.
So light is something we fundamentally are and crave at a soul level, and the text brings in this idea of a primordial word that's also light. That sounds paradoxical.
It does, but it's fascinating. It talks about a form of word that burns in your chest when you sing it, describing it as a vibration, universal wave, Shakti. Not a spoken word, but a core frequency.
Like the Vedic concept of Agni.
Exactly. Sura links it to Agni, the aspiration that summons and makes present to the gods. And the key insight is that when the soul awakens, it doesn't just want light, it wants to immerse in it, to feed on it. Light becomes the essential nourishment for the soul's existence, a burning need to return to the source.
And the nature of this light, it's described in ways that go way beyond physics, doesn't it?
Far beyond. Even the simplest mental understanding, Sura says, shows light as something unique, constant, and permanent, both material and immaterial, non-dual.
Non-dual.
Meaning it exists before the split into opposites, like material immaterial. It's described as a mysterious link between two perfections, the purity of amplitude, the primordial offspring of the consciousness force, and even the daughter of silence.
Wow. So it's foundational. It bridges the physical and the spiritual. It's not just part of reality. It is a core aspect of reality.
Precisely. It's presented as truly fundamental.
Okay, this is where things get really relatable, I think. Isla admits something many of us probably feel. I unwittingly seek the approval of science and society in my fundamental assessments of the universe and myself.
Yeah.
That need for external validation, right? That feeling that if science hasn't proven it, it's not quite real.
It's such a common experience, isn't it? That constant, often subconscious check in with the dominant paradigms. And Sura offers some pretty direct advice here.
Yeah.
Start by getting rid of a complex. The belief that logical thinking, whether that of philosophy or science, is more far-reaching than the non-dual thinking that leads down the path of beauty. It's like, shake off that feeling that logic is the ultimate measure.
And there's a cost to being preoccupied with that validation.
A huge cost. The text calls it a waste of time and energy, trying to justify this deeper non-dual understanding to our ordinary everyday thinking, which is often tinged with scientific superstitions or old errors.
Scientific superstitions. That's a strong phrase.
It is. It emphasizes that these insights from the path of beauty aren't absurd doctrines or hallucinations. They're valid ways of knowing. Even if they don't fit neatly into scientific or purely logical boxes, they operate on a different level.
And Isla then talks about this urge, this uncontrollable impulse to change things, to shake up the heavy thinking of our culture. She wishes science would dish the cold representations that leave life feeling empty, in favor of just technological toys. She wants to refute the whole paradigm.
It's a powerful feeling, that desire for a more meaningful world. Very understandable.
Yeah, it really resonates.
But Sura brings in a crucial caution here, a really important warning about the ego. Sura says, how easily the ego takes over our most spontaneous impulses. My friend, don't try to convince anyone of anything. Say your verse and respect what the world has to say.
So it's not about charging in to fix everything based on our own insights.
Exactly. It's about humility. Respecting the universal movements veiled from the ego that are already unfolding. It's about honoring the developmental path of all beings, all consciousness. Trying to force change from a limited ego, Sura warns, will produce disharmony.
Even with the best intentions.
Even with the best intentions. Sura adds, you barely know who you are. There's a call to recognize a deeper wisdom than your good intentions guiding the great representation. Trust the larger process, basically. Know yourself first.
And this reframes how we might see science's limitations, its dualistic nature. It's not necessarily an error to be corrected.
Not in a moral sense, no. Sura explains it differently. The error of science, the inevitable duality of its thinking, is simply a spontaneous limitation that Raita expresses. Raita is the Vedic concept of cosmic order, the inherent rhythm and truth of the universe. So, science's duality isn't a mistake to be fixed, but a natural expression of reality taking a specific, limited form. It serves a purpose within that cosmic order.
So modern science is a soul formation of thinking.
Yes. And logic, while vital, was like a ladder that led the human to the understanding of the limits of thinking. But logic can say nothing about the unlimited. It got us to the edge, but can't take us further.
So how do we get beyond logic's limits, if not by arguing against it?
Not by force, but by attraction. By encountering something more captivating. Sura says, if your mind lets itself be flooded by beauty, it will surrender to joy. It will surrender to seductive joy.
Wow. Surrender to beauty. It's not about fighting logic, but being drawn to something.
Exactly. It's finding a higher perspective that naturally includes and transcends the logical. It reminds me of that beautiful poem snippet again. Agni woke me up, deep in my night. Don't go back to sleep. I don't recall the dream, but know to be more than a shadow in flight and light at dawn. That inner fire, that aspiration, Agni, it lights the way. It's about expressing eternity within our fleeting human light.
That's a beautiful way to think about the pursuit of knowledge. Less struggle, more like being seduced by wonder. Which brings us to communication itself. Isla asks about word forms, and that leads into Vak, or speech.
It does. And Sura points out that the labels aren't as important as understanding the deep essence of the logos, the speech, the word, or Vak. The idea is we use language constantly, but often unconsciously, without grasping its power to shape reality, its different layers.
Okay, so let's get into these layers. The source mentions 4 forms of Vak. What's the first, most basic one?
The fourth form actually is the most basic. Sura calls it ordinary speech, or even mineral speech. This is our everyday, unconscious speech, the one that creates our social reality.
How does it work?
It's built on the principle's contradiction. A is not B, and on experiencing space and time as separate from us, as external things. It relies on belief in the permanence of signs, like words meaning the same thing always, like rocks for life.
So everyday conversation, scientific language, that's this 4th most rigid form.
Yes, even highly complex theories fall into this category. It's our default, dualistic way of communicating, where meaning is fixed and defined.
Okay, the bedrock. What's the next level up then? More fluid?
That's the third form. the speech of the artist who plays in the
The
limen.
limen, the threshold.
Exactly, a space between states. This speech isn't stuck with fixed forms. Signs and systems are fluid,
Mm.
and crucially, sometimes it dawns in them a symbol of non-dual feeling.
Ah, so it hints at something beyond duality.
Yes, it walks the path from the social liminal, the everyday world, to the deepest liminal intimacy of the soul. It's how our emotional and thinking souls express themselves, revealing unsuspected depths. Like poetry, music, art that evokes something beyond words.
That makes sense. Art uses familiar tools, words, sounds, images, but points beyond their literal meaning, right? Invites a deeper experience.
Perfectly put. It bridges the everyday and the deeper stuff, allowing for that fluidity, hinting at the unlimited.
Okay. And then the second form, that sounds even more profound. Visionary, almost.
It is. This is inspired speech used by very few artists or thinkers. It's the Vak, or speech of the seer, of the Rishi, the visionary sage.
And how does it differ?
It penetrates beyond the constructions of dual thinking or feeling. It's the speech of the supramental, expressing that harmonious and non-dual balance of the three souls.
The tripartite soul again, will, emotion, intellect, and harmony.
Right? This speech reveals forms of the will inaccessible to feeling or thinking, shaping them into supramental archetypes, these original patterns of being.
So it's the language of direct spiritual insight. Can it even be translated into our ordinary fourth form speech?
Not directly, no. Sura says it cannot be translated into the fixed identities of the fourth speech. It can only be hinted at, mediated in terms of the artist's speech, which is why it often appears contradictory, paradoxical, and confusing when we try to grasp it intellectually.
Like trying to explain quantum physics using only classical terms.
Something like that, yes. It's described as an igneous word, fiery, potent, expressing life consciousness at the root of transpersonality, our being beyond the individual ego. It fundamentally challenges our dualistic framework because it comes from a non-dual place.
And then the ultimate source, the first form, Paravac. What is that? It sounds like the origin point of everything.
It really is presented as the primordial source. Paravac is the entity that originates the universe, the I as generating will, both spirit and soul, as consciousness force, as unconditional Shakti of compassion, Prakriti, or universal uterus of compassion.
So like the logos, the divine word.
Exactly. Sura explicitly connects it to the logos or word that Christians refer to. It's the fundamental creative vibration underlying all other forms of speech, present in all beings of the universe, organic and inorganic.
Even in atoms and minerals.
Yes, it is the speech of Shakti, and it is expressed in atoms and quarks, in minerals and plants, in animals, in humans, and in the rest of the beings that populate the different spaces of reality. It's the divine utterance bringing everything into being and sustaining it.
That's an incredibly vast view of communication, suggesting a universal consciousness. Which leads right into Ayla's next question about those rest of the beings. Does Sura mean gods?
Sura clarifies it means every particular form of the universal soul. It's much broader than just gods. Our usual scientific categories, mineral, plant, animal, even the physical and chemical realms, are seen here as just dimensions of manifestation of the universal soul.
So even things we consider inorganic, like rocks, they're seen as having consciousness or being expressions of soul. That's radically different from the standard scientific view.
It really is. The text acknowledges science does not speak of consciousness in relation to the inorganic forms, but Sura affirms these are forms of consciousness force that belong to the volitional soul, describing them as transpersonal entities.
Transpersonal entities.
Yeah.
Okay, so consciousness isn't limited to biology.
Not in this view. It suggests a universal vitality permeating everything, challenging us to see the world as alive in a much deeper sense.
And within this universal soul, the source talks about kind of trinity of being, different ways the I am manifests.
Yes, it outlines three key forms. First, Atman. When the I am Brahman is expressed in configurations of Shakti, we call it Atman. That's often seen as the individual soul, part of the universal whole.
Okay.
Second, Purusha, or human spirit. When Atman merges with the human soul, our specific human blend of will, emotion, intellect, we call it Purusha. That's us, expressed in billions of individuals. And third, Vasudeva, the spirit of the gods. When the Atman merges with the Devic soul, the divine configurations, we find ourselves before the spirit of the gods, Vasudeva, he who resides in all the luminous ones.
Divas being these luminous ones.
Yes. These distinctions help map how the universal I am shows up in different conscious forms, the ultimate self, the human, the divine, all interconnected.
And it even suggests communication between humans and these devas is possible, though maybe unnoticed most of the time.
Exactly. Divas are transpersonal beings different from humans, although relatively close, so communication is possible. But Sura notes, it is difficult for us to understand the transpersonality of our identities, our being beyond the ego, so it often goes unnoticed. Our minds are too caught up in the fourth speech.
We're not tuned to the right frequency, maybe.
Something like that. The Yuan spirit is a different limitation of the Atman than the Deva spirit. The text even references Vasudeva Narayana from Hinduism, the Deva who lives in the human, suggesting these divine energies aren't just out there, but potentially within us, influencing us.
Okay, so if Vasudeva is this spirit of the gods, is that where our concept of Brahman, the ultimate supreme being, came from? Or is it different?
That's a great question Ayla asks. Sura explains Vasudeva isn't just mental, it's a psychic formation involving feeling and will, pointing towards the supramental soul formation. And yes, our human intuition of Brahman did develop, starting from the soul realm of the gods, from Vasudeva. It wasn't an abstract idea conceived in isolation.
So the understanding of Brahman evolved. It wasn't just a sudden insight.
Precisely. The concept of Vasudeva only appeared with the dawn of the light of the supramental. It was glimpsed early on, like in the Rig Veda, but needed time and the insights of later rishis to mature.
Why did it take time?
Because the psychic configuration of the supramental took time to adapt to the dual mental forms of the Vak, the common speech. It needed the rishi's speech, the second form, reflecting on the artist's speech, third form, and social narratives, for the concept of Brahman to become even minimally understood through ordinary language, fourth form.
And even now, it's not fully grasped just intellectually.
Right. Sura says, it is not something well understood intellectually, despite the fact that intuition easily presents itself to devotional feeling and the desire for beauty. It shows spiritual concepts evolve through multiple layers of consciousness and expression, requiring more than just intellect, a shift in our whole being.
Which brings us back to us, the listener. If this supramental light, this deeper understanding, this knowing as being is so key, how do we make that dawn happen? How do we access it?
It's the crucial question, isn't it? And Sura's answer is really potent. The supramental light is not a conditioned light. It simply happens. The sun does not rise due to anyone's merit.
So you can't earn it or achieve it through effort.
No. Trying to seek it from our personality, our conglomerate of masks, our ego, that just leads to emptiness, maybe even delusion or superstition. It's not something the ego can grasp or attain. It reveals itself when the conditions are right, internally.
So trying to force it, create the right conditions externally, that doesn't work. It seems so counter to how we usually approach things.
It really is, because this isn't a goal like other goals. Trying to manufacture conditions creates a simulacrum, something artificial and ultimately limiting and oppressive for the soul. Invoking other soul energies won't force the supramental dawn.
So what's the key then?
The key is understanding this transpersonality, this deeper reality in our own existence, through direct inner experience. That implies the supramental dawn, the emergence of a light that allows us to understand the action of Shakti, the consciousness force, unfolding within us.
And this isn't just thinking harder or faster, a supermind. It's something qualitatively different. Can you give us a feel for what knowing as being is like?
Yes, the text is clear. It's not a supermind in action. It's the formation of a harmonious psyche, where our will, emotion, and intellect work together perfectly. This allows for knowing as being, a way of knowing that goes beyond dual rationality.
So it's holistic. Like you don't just know about love, you are love.
That's a good analogy. You embody the knowledge. You don't just possess it mentally. And significantly, these deeper realities, like the devas, can only really be grasped through the higher forms of Vaki, the logos, or the rishi's speech. Ordinary thinking just can't get there.
Okay, so if it just happens, if we can't strive for it directly, how does the journey even begin? Is there a catalyst?
The journey, Sura explains, begins with Agni, the flame of aspiration. That inner fire, that burning desire for truth, for deeper connection. This Agni burns the fears of the tripartite soul, clearing away the limitations of our separate will, emotion, and intellect.
And
then continues towards the supreme amplitude. This vastness, this supreme breadth, is identified with the Deva Varuna, the power of infinity and purity.
Varuna, often associated with the vast sky or oceans, right?
Exactly. It manifests externally as that immensity. So the inner journey aspiration, burning away fear, connects directly to experiencing this cosmic vastness and purity. The macrocosm reflects the microcosm.
And in the poem about Varuna, he mentions his mother, the waters, and my mother, the infinite night. Who is this great mother figure?
Isla asks that too. Sura identifies her as Aditi, the universal force consciousness in which its infinity is emphasized. And Aditi is, well, profoundly beyond description. Sura says it has many names and none of them say her completely. Such an expression would be infinite.
So a deity isn't just another deity or concept, she's more fundamental.
Far more fundamental. The universe is her manifestation, her expression as the power of Brahman, as the infinite action of the I Am, as Prakriti or Supreme Akasha.
Prakriti, the source substance, Akasha, the ether or space?
Right. And crucially, Aditi is not a speech, not even the logos. It is not a saying, nor manifesting, nor a thinking or feeling or simple will. She precedes even these fundamental creative principles. She is the consciousness force of Brahman in its infinite forms, the breath of Brahman.
Wow, the uncontainable source, the infinite ground of everything, the womb of reality itself.
That's it, the ultimate substratum.
It sounds like something we might sense as children, that feeling of unboundedness, before we learn to quantify everything.
Sura points directly to that. Aditi, she who has no limit, she who is not divisible, appears in our childlike intuition of infinity. Since she is present in every soul, she is every soul. We have that innate sense.
But we lose it.
Then we forget it, we cover up with traditional arithmetic, which deals with limits and quantities, not the truly boundless.
So our usual mathematical idea of infinity isn't what Aditi represents.
Not entirely. The source acknowledges mathematical infinities, like Cantor's sets think endless counting. But it contrasts this with the qualitative infinity the rishis knew. It's not just more and more numbers. It's a fundamentally different quality of being, of boundless awareness.
A different order of reality.
Exactly. Understanding that requires transfinite, non-dual thinking. Otherwise, we just get stuck in paradoxes our dualistic mind can't solve.
So infinity here isn't just a quantity, but a quality, an attribute.
Yes. The infinity of the Great Mother is an attribute of attributes. It modifies everything associated with her. Infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, infinite beauty. It's an infinity that's not about size or number, but the emergence of an akasha of different ontological order.
A boundless ground of being.
And Aditi, or Shakti, is the Great Mother of all psychic forms, the joy that sustains what has no limit, the complete affirmation that underlies everything. It's the boundless delight that allows all of existence.
Which leads to maybe the most personal question. Can we choose infinity? Can we choose Aditi?
Sura's answer is just stunningly direct. Right now, you are standing tall over it. To choose infinity is to be chosen by it.
Wow. So it's not something out there to grab, but something we're already part of, something that claims us when we open to it.
Exactly. It's inherent. The Great Mother is self-existent. She's not a specific God, not even the I Am itself, but a power of the I Am, the consciousness force soul. Infinity isn't separate. It's a fundamental aspect of your being, always here.
What a place to arrive at. It really circles back to that idea of reality and truth and how our dualistic thinking can act as a veil.
It does. And the final lines of poetry in the source just capture it so perfectly, like a summary of the whole journey. What is the veil? Dual speech that creates and separates things. What is the cure? The aspiration or love complaint that burns in absence as much as in presence of the beloved.
Beautiful. Dualistic thought creates the separation. Aspiration, that deep love or longing for the ultimate, burns through it.
Yes, that burning desire heals the illusion of separation.
What an incredible deep dive this has been. We started wrestling with reality and truth beyond just definitions, then felt that deep soul longing for light as the essence of creation. We saw the limits of purely logical thinking and how beauty can actually, liberate the mind into a different kind of knowing.
Yeah, seduce it into joy, as the text says.
Exactly. Then we explored those layers of speech, Vak, from the everyday words that build our world, to the artist's fluid expression, the seer's deep insight, right up to the primordial logos.
And that expanded our whole view of consciousness, didn't it? Seeing it in everything, understanding the universal soul, the devas, and finally Aditi, the Great Mother, infinity itself.
It really did. It feels like we've been given this amazing shortcut, a way to get informed about these huge, sometimes intimidating ideas, new frameworks for seeing ourselves in the universe.
Definitely provides a new lens, a richer perspective on our own inner landscape and our connection to, well, everything.
So for you, our listener, as you step back into your day, here's maybe a thought to carry with you. If that veil separating things is dual speech, our habit of dividing reality up, and the cure is that aspiration, that burning love for the beloved, how might we cultivate that aspiration in small ways every day?
What simple shifts, maybe in attention or perspective, could help dissolve some of those fears Sura mentioned? the limits we put on our will, our feelings, our thoughts.
And what deeper unity might start to reveal itself right where we previously only saw separation? Something to perhaps feel into, maybe the next time you notice the sunlight or hear music that truly touches you. Something to ponder until our next deep dive.